The town of Hempstead, well, it makes up a major portion of Nassau County. It consists of more than 20 individual incorporated villages, either entirely or partially. And that includes a population larger than Boston, at nearly 770,000 people. Well, this speaks to the inherent importance of the position of Town of Hempstead Supervisor, the highest elected executive official in this massive, diverse, and complex town. Following a closely watched and even closer contested election, our guest is the former town's receiver of taxes, but was ultimately declared the winner. Having officially been sworn into office on Wednesday, now joining us on this week's Long Island News is the new Town of Hempstead Supervisor, Donald Clavin. Hello, Don.
Bill, John, Happy New Year, and all the listeners, Happy New Year's to everybody and their families.
Happy New Year to you, and congratulations on your election. That was, I guess you're happy that's over, huh?
Yeah, it was. I am. I think my family's just as happy, but it's we're back to governing. I was in here on New Year's Day at 7:15 in the morning. Getting right to business. A nice little swearing-in ceremony with my family. My sister, who's a village justice, did me the honor of swearing me in, and we've been running ever since.
That's great. Yep. Very good. Very good.
Glad to hear it.
Hey, we have something in common. I understand you're a Hofstra graduate.
I am. I went to Hofstra Law School, a proud graduate of the law school there, and I'm glad to, give a shout-out to my peeps and be the representative. But I also went to Nassau Community College during these summers when I went to college, so I have a little bit of a tie into everybody.
Hey, that's great. We have more in common than I thought.
Getting ahead during those summer semesters.
Absolutely. Listen, there was no idle time in the Clavin household. That's what my father told me, so.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good sentiment for governance.
Very
definitely.
Cool, yeah.
Hey, listen, it's the greatest community college in all the United States of America, so everybody should stand proud.
And you know what? That's so true. I have so many friends who went to schools all over the country, and they to a person, they accepted every credit that was gotten here at Nassau Community College.
Hey, at the end of the day, Nassau Community College probably saved me a couple $1,000s on my overall fee, so God bless all of you.
There you go.
The best kept secret on Long Island. You're right.
Plug for the,
You're
for the
right. So I'm curious, Don, how did, let's say, your job as a tax receiver, how has that helped you to look at this new position?
You know what? I've had the ability, I've had the fortunate of being the receiver of taxes here for the town since 2001. Amazingly, it's the largest township in America. I was actually collecting over $2.5 billion yearly. Wow. But you know what? It gave me the insight into the government that I've dealt with all these departments. I haven't dealt with any fire services, as you hear, going by.
Yeah, right.
But I've dealt with, a lot of the co-workers. As I look at everybody here in the town, I don't look, we're all paid by the same person. That's all the taxpayers. But I've also spent my tenure that not only collected taxes, I put in place an outreach program where since 2002, I was able to help thousands upon thousands of people file for tax exemptions, and thousands upon thousands of people challenge their assessment and save themselves money. And that's a commitment I'd done every year, not just in election years, and I did it throughout the town. So I think people had a real familiarity with who I was and what I'd been doing for them for a long time.
Right. Okay. That's very good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
It's like you said, you definitely have been active, holding a lot of tax clinics is our understanding, and like you said, really being active in trying to change the reassessment process. So we know that that's always going to be a big issue here for Long Islanders. Property taxes is definitely one of those constant talked about issues. So I guess if you want maybe just to tell us maybe what you intend to do, again, to help along with what you've already been doing before, now that you're in office.
Well, you know what? On day one, I've already saved all the residents in the town of Hempstead $1 million. And I did that by eliminating unnecessary staffing in the budget of the supervisor's office.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, there was just, a tremendous amount of wasted middle management. So I've done away with that. I have a lean, mean staff. I've already met with the commissioners. They're going to deal directly with the chief of staff, who will bring right to me. That's what the residents want to see. I made a pledge of eliminating staffing and saving $1 million. And on day one, I've delivered that. And that's just one of the things that we're working on. We're also looking at, we've called for the resignation of every commissioner, every deputy commissioner, and department head, where I'm going to sit down with my colleagues on the town board. I like to remind people, I'm the supervisor, but I have councilmatic members that I have to work with. And we're going to sit down and we're going to revalue everybody that's working here in the town, the management level, to make sure we have a workforce that is representative of them and working for everybody.
Of course. That makes perfect sense. And then maybe just can we get you, have you publicly talked about your support or lack of it for the SALT, again, policy that's being talked about at the federal and state level?
When SALT went, that went into effect 2 years ago, we actually led the state in assisting residents. We put in a mechanism where from December 26th through the 31st, we had over 26,000 residents walk through the doors of the tax office in the town of Hempstead alone, and we were able to get them the ability to prepay their taxes to get that last deduction before they lost it. Oh. And I've been a critic of the administration when it comes to this. We are the heaviest taxed region. I think we have almost the moniker of paying the most taxes in the United States, residential-wise, and that's something that was devastating to us. And I hope that the elected officials in D.C. put their petty partisan politics aside and do what's right for the residents and restore that.
Okay.
Amen. Yeah. I hear that, Don. I hear that.
Yeah, I said, I'm involved with politics, and I'll tell you guys something. I can't even watch this stuff on TV when it comes to national and even state politics. And I think that's something that had a bearing on this year's election, that residents don't want to see that at the local level. They want their elected officials to work together. Mm-hmm. On the town board, on election night after I won, the first person I called before I even got home, I called the Democratic councilwoman that sits in the town board at 2:00 in the morning to tell her how much I was looking forward to working with her. And she actually answered the phone on the first ring and said, "I knew you'd call me, Don." Wow. And I said, "I did, because that's what I meant." And the residents should know that, I'm going to work with my colleagues. Right. I can fight with anybody. Sometimes it's harder to work with people, but I pledge that to them.
Very good. Very good.
Definitely good to hear.
It's good to hear, yeah. And at this point in time, how's the transition going?
Good. You know what? We had a couple of meetings. We had a transition committee. We got a couple of meetings with the outgoing administration. But like I said, we've hit the ground running day one. Yesterday I had a commissioners meeting. First thing I should rewind a little bit. I greeted all of my coworkers entering the building first thing in the morning, because, like I said, I work with everybody in the town workforce. Mm-hmm. Then I had a commissioners meeting, and then we had a meeting of snow preparedness. I'm already looking ahead of those snowflakes you guys talked about.
Yeah,
I got to stay ahead of that snow always.
Yeah, really. Don, it was funny. I just going through some stuff, and I saw when candidates or elected officials come in and they say, "I have a transition committee." I always visualize in my head, maybe a dais with 10, 15 people, but it's a little bigger than that, isn't it?
And it has Peter King, the congressman, correct, leading up a major part of that committee, correct?
Well, Peter. It's funny. Peter King is the retiring congressperson, head the delegation. We also had Village Hempstead attorney Sharice Vanderhall as the co-chair of it, and we had a group on the transition committee that represented everything from law enforcement to residents to civic groups to clergy, because I can have an idea, but this is an incredibly diverse community, mm-hmm. and by having people together, it helped formulate some of the issues that we should be focusing on and some of the areas that they see a need for, and I think that was really important. Like I said, it's the largest township in America. It's 750,000 plus residents, very diverse, and what might interest one resident might not be the same as another.
Yeah. Well said. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders.
You know what? We're all going to do it together.
Yeah,
all the residents included. So, and my colleagues on the board. So that's something that I'm lucky. Like I said, I got a very supportive family. I have town board members that I have great relationships with, and the residents have just been so overwhelmingly giving me such positive comments when I'm out there. I was in Stu Leonard's last night, right down the block from Nassau Community College,
doing
my shopping at 8:00, and And two residents stopped me and they said, "Hey, you Don Clavin?" And they gave me words of encouragement. And one of them had an idea of how to change something, and I wrote it down. And I'm going to follow up with them and see what we can do.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And speaking of close to home and close to where we are right now with Stu Leonard's, one of the major issues that we know will be, again, impacted with your governance is the NYCB Nassau Hub expansion across the street around the Coliseum. It's a 72-acre parcel, and it still is subject to town zoning rules, even though it's owned by the county. So I know that's something that you've spoken a lot about in the past, and it becoming at times a political football, but it seems like you think that this time is different. Why do you think that project specifically is so important to the town?
Last time I think the development was handled in a different fashion. I think you have somebody and Scott Reckler and his team that understands dynamics of really accomplishing real significant building on Long Island. I think they've gone about it a different way, and I think it's been very, very successful, and a credit to them. Where, as I say, you want to get the stakeholders on board first, and I think he's done that. I think, he's done a community outreach program to get the surrounding areas and residents an understanding of what his vision is. I think he's reached out to the surrounding, colleges and universities to get them on board. He's, incorporated aspects, of, the medical background, housing, and commercial, and also they've gotten a real benefit in the fact that the state is willing to help contribute to the cost of building, parking for that area, which is tens upon tens, millions of dollars. That's a savings. We want it to be a success. We don't want to see a vacant, parking field. We want to see a real positive development. And I think Scott Reckler is doing a good job. And I look working with him and the residents and helping that area be a success.
Mm. Yeah, that's been bouncing around for a really long time. I was always curious to see how this is going to turn out, as far as, is it just going to be an arena? Is it going to be, family dwellings?
Shopping areas.
Shopping areas?
It's going to be a little bit of everything. And I think that's the great thing. Listen, I grew up, I was an Islander season ticket holder. I stood on the side of the Coliseum, and I got, Trotz's signature and Potvin and Nystrom, in the golden era.
Yep.
I love it. That's why I hated to see the Islanders used as a political toy, and you haven't seen that, with the new ownership. And in this one, Scott Reckler has a mix of commercial, educational, housing, entertainment, and I think by bringing it all together, this is the one that could really be the success story for that area.
Well, we hope so.
That would be great.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
For us right here across the street. But I know we have some other issues we wanted to discuss as well.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things in the news these days. I mean, we've got the increased reporting of hate crimes and anti-Semitism. And I guess, does the transition team deal with any of those things as far as the local law enforcement goes?
We did. In fact, we held a press conference on New Year's Eve down in the Five Towns. It is very troubling, the amount of intolerance or frankly anti-Semitism that has occurred. Most recently, it seems like every single day you're picking up or turning the TV on, you're hearing another incident. We had community leaders from a diverse group of every background together to say, here in the town of Hempstead, we're not going to tolerate it. And we got together as symbolic, but also we're following up where we're talking with our public safety department about stepping up a presence at various houses of worship, and particularly during the time period of celebrations in those areas as a deterrent. But it's very disturbing that that this intolerance is taking place, and like I said, and it's almost becoming the norm in the last 30 days. We're seeing this, and we should all be outraged by it, and we all should take a stand.
Definitely don't want to become desensitized to that type of stuff.
Sadly, I heard, I guess it was one of the officials from New York City talking about this comes down to the individuals. You know what your block is like. And when things aren't right, you'd be the first to know. We all have to step up and say something.
Say something.
It's funny. That's a really important comment you just made, that if you see something, say something. You've heard that all, Ed, but it comes down to this sort of sentiment as well. Yeah. And I tell people, when an incident happens, a lot of the times you're able to catch these individuals or these groups just by maybe the camera on your house, or the security camera at the business, and that's a plus. So I said, if it takes place, anybody might be of assistance in catching any of these individuals who are perpetrating this.
Yeah. But, it is very scary.
Takes the community.
Well, on other fronts, we also have, environmental concerns. We've got the drinking water and some of the natural spaces on Long Island, the parks and
We've talked a lot about the pollution and Bethpage. How, I guess, is your administration, preparing to just make sure that the water is protected in the town of Hempstead?
Earlier this year, I even think before I announced my candidacy, it was announced the state was going to change some of the requirements for water, and which is great, and it stems from a lot of the chemicals, detergents that are used that are seeping into our water supply. But with the changes comes a real cost of treatment, which is tens of millions of dollars. And one of the things I urged the state and our officials at different levels was we support changes in dioxane and the requirements. However, you shouldn't just pass it along as an unfunded mandate. That's not fair. There has to be an assistance with the cost. Because I think in the town just for the town, it's a cost of over $36 million to get in compliance just with our wells. And there are wells within villages in the town that are, I think there's one community that's a village that their bill to get in compliance could cost the residents over $20 million. Yeah. We all want safe drinking water. We all want good quality of life. But there has to be, an understanding that it doesn't come, free. There's a cost. And we pay a fortune in property taxes here. We need a little assistance from our state officials in helping to foot the bill.
Yeah, I also think that some towns that may have substandard or problems with their, everybody has to clean up together. You can't clean up one town and be next to a town that has problems with the aquifer or whatever, and expect your water to stay clean.
Well, 100% right. And, we're very unique here. Other parts of the state don't get they get their water from, trickling down. We get it the other way, coming up. So, and like I said, we all want, I got 3 small kids. I want safe drinking water, and we all want the best. But like I said, we also have to recognize, though, there's a cost associated with it, and it's a significant cost. And we just need some help paying for all this.
Yeah. Well, some of the other things, let's see what we got here. Well, now many people are talking about the green light law.
Long lines at the DMVs we've been seeing. We had an interview a few weeks ago with a reporter who spoke again about what we're seeing on Long Island, and seeing that it is definitely creating a response both by advocates and the undocumented community who are very quickly going to get licenses, but also people who are concerned about what that may mean for streets. Do you want to speak a little bit about how, I guess, you feel and where the, town stands in enacting those laws that become state law now?
Well, look, I think our state legislators in Albany last year enacted some policies. I don't know if they really thought it all the way through. Look, everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to feel welcomed here, and they are. They're going to be under my administration. But look what they did with the changes in the requirements in bail reform. Where you've had hundreds of individuals released from jails. I read just last night that there was an inmate that was released in the last week that there was a carjacking in Belmore where there were, from one of the individuals. I know I read one this morning. I don't know if that's what they envisioned. Maybe their good intentions, went a little bit too far, and they really didn't sit down with some of our officials in law enforcement and in the court system to really ask or find out what the changes they were making, what the ramifications were going to be.
Right. I think there's also a lot of misinformation, regarding some of a bunch of these. You go onto social media, and there's a lot of there's a lot of junk that's diluting
there's a lot of stuff muddying the waters on exactly what happened.
But I will tell you, when I talked to judges and I did talk to some prosecutors and former prosecutors, they did have legitimate concerns, and
of course.
And I said, and that's part of the problem is, they sometimes they pass legislation in Albany, and they don't really explain it to the residents.
Yes.
And again, get get people on board, get them to understand. And then when people see something on social media and they, and they believe it and they're like, oh, wow, I read this on social media. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm raising kids saying everything on the internet isn't true. That's how it is.
Amen. Well, our time constraint says we kind of got to get going. I would love to be able to, get in touch with you at any time in the future, especially when things come up concerning town of Hempstead and us. And would that be okay with you if we knocked on your door and said,
listen, I'm known. If you guys want to come on in, I'll make you guys a cup of coffee. But no, seriously, Bill, John, I want to say thank you to both of you. And again, it's a happy New Year to everybody in the town. Happy New Year to everybody over at the college and all your listeners. And I look forward to working with all my colleagues and doing and having good results for all the town residents.
Well, Don, I got to tell you, after talking to you, I feel much better. One of the things I've always said about any leadership, we need cooler heads to prevail.
Yeah.
And after speaking to you for, approximately 20 minutes now, I kind of got the feeling that you're a cooler head. So
I appreciate it, and and hopefully my children feel that way when they're fighting.
Well, that's a different story. There's no hardball like family hardball.
That's most important, of course. Well, yep. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year again. Take care.
You too. Take care.